ToonGrin.com.
This mission is gonna require maximum stealth. Hello!
Hello and welcome to Watchin' Stuff, the show about watching stuff. I'm NERO, with me is my Canadian counterpart WHYBOY, and today we're taking a look at Disney's abysmal failure. Not financially, because financially speaking it did very well. But I can only describe it as the worst Disney movie ever made, even though it was released under their Touchstone brand. I'm still considering it a Disney movie because they own Touchstone and Disney did produce it.
Yeah.
Gnomeo and Juliet, a movie that only could have been conceived while somebody was drunk in a bar somewhere and thought the pun was genuinely clever.
But Nero, don't you know, it's the greatest love story you have ever known. You have ever known.
I can't fucking do this. I can't.
Gnome.
I'm out.
Gnome, it's hilarious. It's hilarious,
I don't.
isn't it? Oh my god, this crap. Like, we were trying to do, like, a whole, like, Gnome month with ToonGrin and such starting this month. Like, it was my idea to basically, because Sherlock Gnome was coming out, and me and Nero had never seen Romeo and Juliet before, so I was just all like, oh boy, maybe I can find all the Gnome movies and see what we think of them. Starting off with this one, and you know what? Hey, it's a movie that we haven't really seen, so maybe it could be good. No. Like, oh my god, is it not good? Like, yeah, if you can tell from the actual title, like, it's based off what else? Hamlet.
Really? I thought it was Macbeth.
Oh, yeah, I keep mixing it all up, but yeah, Romeo and Juliet, there's some red gnomes, and then there's some blue gnomes. They're in two separate gardens, and they're just all like, I hate the blues, I hate the reds. And then they just hate each other. And then Romeo and Juliet find each other in a separate garden, and then they fall in love at first sight.
Can we start with the fact the movie starts off with one of the we'll just call them the toyetics. One of the toyetic little gnomes comes out and addresses to the audience, directly to us. It says, "You've seen this story. You've heard it multiple times. This is it again." So first off, it kind of sets up, I guess it sets you up for disappointment, so kudos.
Yeah, we're not going to surprise you with this. It's the exact same story as you've seen multiple times.
But told worse.
Yeah.
So much worse. It's almost fascinating, no joke. It's Romeo and Juliet, but they're lawn gnomes.
Red and blue ones.
Red and blue ones, because you have to tell them apart. There's no logical reason why this story needed to be with them as lawn ornaments.
They just wanted to do the Toy Story thing where they just freeze in place.
Do you think it was like... I don't know. Do you think it was like a toyetic thing? Like, kids would have been more interested if they weren't actual, like, in a magical land and actual gnomes at war as opposed to...
I really don't know.
Like, I can't think of a logical reason why... Like, Toy Story, it makes sense. It's, you know, the toy's perspective, but it's about, like, Andy also growing up.
Yeah, and,
you know,
and there's also, if you just take it from just sort of like the toys coming to life perspective, that's just sort of what every kid wants. Just like, oh my god, my toys are coming to life, that's so cool.
You saying no kid wants their fucking lawn gnomes and, like, flamingos to come to life?
Yeah, I'm saying that, Nero. I'm saying that no kid wants their lawn gnomes or garden flamingos to come to life. Because I don't think most kids have that sort of, like, emotional attachment to their garden gnomes.
That's fair. It's a weird bird because... It should work.
Yeah, but
not the lawn gnome, not the lawn ornament crap. That doesn't make a damn lick of sense. The idea, but like Romeo and Juliet with gnomes, okay, that can work. You and I, after seeing this, we sat down and we watched Lion King 2: Simba's Pride, which is just Romeo and Juliet with lions.
And that was leagues better.
And they went into detail like, why the lions were why lions were banished to the Badlands, their support of Scar, the support of the regicide of Mufasa when Simba took charge, the biases that Mufasa had to overcome in order for him to accept Kovu, who his daughter loved. There was, surprisingly, for a Disney sequel, it was pretty damn well written.
Yeah.
And then you get to this, and it's a train wreck.
It is. Like, we can just list them off just from start to finish. Like, just the start of it, it's just like nothing's really set up. All we just got is like, they're reds, they're blues, they hate each other. Why? I don't know.
But if you're doing an all-new retelling, and I know someone will probably be like, well, in the play, maybe they didn't set up how the Capulets and the Montagues were actually, warring with each other. Let's say, because I haven't seen the play in a long time, I haven't read the play in a long time, I admit I'm fuzzy on Romeo and Juliet. I'm not going to debate that. Even if, for the sake of argument, we can say, the play didn't go into it, who gives a shit? In the play, there weren't a lot of gnomes either. So you have the chance as storytellers, though, to add more depth to it. Lion King did.
Yeah, and I'll just say this as someone who has read more of the Shakespeare stuff more recently. They did set that stuff up. They didn't go into specifics about it, but they actually, had scenes where the Montagues and the Capulets was just sort of warring with each other, just saying, I hate you, maybe not for specific reasons, but they actually set up them together, just hating each other, talking amongst themselves why they hate each other, actually going into the whys of it. Here it's just like, we hate you. Let's pull a prank on them. Let's pull a prank on them. And
it's confusing because at first I thought going into this, and I think you might have had the same thought I did, we thought it was going to be because the two owners that live in the houses next door to each other, they didn't like each other, and that's why the gnomes were retaliating.
Yeah, because it basically just sort of translates to them why they hate them. So they just be like, they hate our owner, we just hate you now.
But then the big thing is, it turns out why the owners fight. It's because the gnomes are dicks to each other, and then the owners think each other are with each other's garden the entire time.
Yeah.
So you can't even like any of the gnomes, because they're all dicks.
Yeah, because they're destroying their owner's property and making them fight with each other. It's completely unjustifiable. So
not only are we not given a setup of mutual hatred towards one each other and why there's a mutual hatred towards one another, but to top it all off, it's not even how you think it would be, where the two owners don't like each other, and that's reflective upon their properties, and that's why they're fighting. Instead, the two owners don't like each other because their properties are fighting, and that's going and reflecting that onto the... It's fucking... back-asswards!
It is, and it's just moronic, and it just makes them all little hateable assholes.
There are no characters. It's ironic for something based on one of the most famous plays of all time, with quotable dialogue, which they shoehorn in here and try to modernize, by the way, so it sounds moronic and out of place.
Yeah, but there's zero characters. There is zero characters. Like, if we were to describe Gnomeo and Juliet, how would we describe them? We can't.
I'd have to describe what... At best, I'd have to describe what character is associated with which character from the play. Which, by the way, they don't even, like... In Lion King 2 Simba's Pride, there's at least parallels you can draw of, like, Kovu is Romeo. Was it Kuvera is the daughter?
Yeah, Kiara.
She's
Juliet.
She's Juliet. And, obviously Simba is either a Montague or Capulet. I guess it really doesn't matter because I guess it matters which family's which side, I guess, in the long run. But, like, the whole point is, like, it's obviously Simba represents one of the warring families, and then you have Zira, who represents one of the heads of the warring families, so that's the Capulets and the Montagues. And you can pull those parallels. Here, it's all stuff lifted. There's a guy called Tybalt.
Paris.
There's a character... There's a character called Benny, who's supposed to be based on, was it Beniviolo?
Yeah, it's something like that.
who, by the way, according to the play, is supposed to be like the peacemaker who wants to avoid war at all cost, and this little shit is like probably the most bloodthirsty of all of them, who really wants to get shit killed.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just all over the place. And we have Paris, Elton John of the movie in here.
Because he's all over the place too. He's like a producer on this. He wrote like most of the music on this crap.
Yeah, it really is just sort of like ham-handed sort of Romeo and Juliet writing. But it really just doesn't set up the Romeo and Juliet styling at all.
Well, like, again, cut over to Lion King. Kovu and Kira meet each other for the first time. They're cubs. They start to fight a little bit, but then they start to slowly get along. You know, like, he sees her stance, and he's like, what are you doing? And she says, my father always told me never to turn my back on an outsider. And then, you know, they escape the crocodiles together. They start to connect. They see their parents fight. They get separated. They meet again when they're, I guess we'll just say teenagers for the sake of argument, because I'm pretty sure that's what they're supposed. I don't know what a fucking teenage lion looks like, but let's just assume those are teenagers.
Yeah, we'll just say yeah.
And they confront each other, and she does her stance again, and Kovu looks at her, and he goes, what are you doing? And she realizes that it's Kovu, and he's all grown up.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, look at that, they start connecting again. And then you have scenes where they just go out hunting together, or he's trying to teach her how to be a hunter, or like them spending just casual time together, and you start building up on it. In this movie, it's literally both of them go for a flower at the exact same time. One wears a sock over them, so you can't see they're wearing red. One's covered in mud, so you can't see he's wearing blue, except obviously his blue shirt. But okay, the movie's just gonna ignore that. And then they prick a flower, they banter back and forth without introducing one another to their names.
Yeah.
They fall into a pond, realize one's red and one's blue, and then they freak out. But for some reason, the blue one is just infatuated with her. And he only hears about like who she is from like secondhand eavesdropping.
Yeah, like there is that sort of like line of logic where you just say like, oh, it's supposed to be the star-crossed lovers sort of thing, but it's sort of
they kind of have to love though.
Yeah,
and there's nothing. There's no soft moment like in Shrek when like he's walking with Fiona and he makes food for her and she like takes the spider web and she collects all the bees and makes it like cotton candy for him. It's little things like that that slowly start to build your characters. In this, there's just the one weird meet cute that doesn't really feel like it makes any sense, and then all of a sudden he's like going above and beyond to come over there to see her, and that's it.
Yeah, this movie needed some like quiet, slow moments to basically actually get them together. They could have that star-crossed moment together, that's fine, but it needed to have a gradual build-up to the relationship. I would say, like, if I was going to rewrite that whole sort of initial meeting, it would just be like, he sees Juliet going for the flower, and he sees her, maybe she trips, basically falls down, almost gets smashed, and he decides like, oh, I gotta save her. Saves her and gives her the flower, like his first sign of being a gentleman.
And you know what? Don't even have them disguised.
Yeah.
Have her be a red gnome, and she falls, and he just does the right thing, and helps her, so you establish he's a good person, and you take it from there, where it's like, oh, her preconceived notion of blues being whatever the preconceived notion is, because that's not really touched on at all, is wrong, it's misguided. And connect with that on some kind of, like, ground. Connect something with, like, why the queen and the king of the blues and the reds don't like each other. It's weird. They skipped, like, the warring family stuff, too, altogether. Like, other than that, they kind of dick around with each other, and Tybalt's like the bully you'd see at the beach that walks up and, like, kicks sand in your face.
Yeah.
Like, that's the kind of character he is, where he's like, I'm the big macho character. Yeah. It's ridiculous. Every time he comes out with the stupid, like, lawn ornament of the deer, they should just play the Bulk and Skull theme from Power Rangers. It's like, it's so crappy.
Yeah, and just for the weird voice acting sort of tidbit, that's Ozzy Osbourne as the deer.
The deer's Ozzy Osbourne. Dude, Tybalt, that's Jason Statham.
Yes.
What the
it's so weird.
What?
Yeah, then,
it feels so random.
Yeah, then the rest of the movie, we just like ignoring all our ideas that we believe would have actually helped the movie. They just move forward with just Romeo and Juliet falling in love, just going off to their little garden. They basically had their secret romance and such, where they meet up with a pink flamingo. That's supposed to be sort of the genie of the whole thing.
His name is Featherstone, because I have the wiki page up, because I ain't gonna remember these damn names, because Featherstone's not a pun.
Yeah, because he's supposed to be the parallel with the friar from the actual story.
Yeah, he's supposed to be like Friar Lawrence, because like Friar Lawrence, he had like the church. There's like a abandoned garden that they hang out in, which is where he's from. And by the way, dude, you mentioned like, what about this, like the quiet moments to help connect us? I think the quiet moment supposed to connect us is when Friar Flamingo shows up, and he's like, I used to have a wife. What? I used to have a wife. We lived in a house with a happily married couple. And then they stopped being happy. And then they got divorced and they took my wife away. Oh, that sucks. Don't worry, then in credits, they just bought me another one.
It makes that moment even more manipulative because they were having a fight beforehand where basically Romeo was going to spray poison on all of the Red's flowers and such and in Juliet's face. And Juliet is just rightfully pissed off and just like, you're about to spray us with freaking poison!
Yeah, but those dicks came over and they like murdered the tree that his dad planted, which I guess means nothing, by the way, because that subplot gets
by the way,
resolved.
The red's the mother's dead, the blue the father is dead, and they got off-camera disease.
That other weird thing of like, oh, your father would be so proud if he was here. What happened? Oh, your mother would be so proud if she was here. What happened?
She just.
Oh, okay.
She just died.
Went over there.
What do you mean? It's such a soulless movie. It has all these beats set up and such, but it's just placed there. It has no emotional tension behind it. It has no emotional weight to basically make us engage with Romeo and Juliet. We don't know Romeo and Juliet as characters. They're just archetypes. The reckless guy and the girl who doesn't want to be fragile.
That wasn't Juliet, though. Was Juliet's thing that, like,
Yeah.
she was a tough girl or, like, a go-getter? Was that a thing?
Basically her first scene was just all like, Dad, I'm not fragile. I just want to get the flowers.
I assume the fragile thing is because they're ceramic. By the way, movie has no sense of physics. They're either really fragile and it's tragic, or they just don't break. And then when they do break, it doesn't matter because you could glue them back together and they're fine.
Yep. No stakes in Romeo and Juliet, because that's the one thing about it that they do improve. Because
can we bring that up?
Yeah. Let us just set this up a little bit more, because then we have the Romeo and Juliet. They have their whole sort of shebang and all that, but then they find out just like, oh my God, I see Romeo and Juliet together. Oh, I gotta run away now. And then Romeo gets hit into the road. He basically gets smashed, and Juliet's like, no. And that's where he leads Romeo to basically be taken far away to the park, where he meets up with the giant metal statue of Shakespeare, where Shakespeare is telling us like, wow, this story that you're telling me sounds really interesting, like one of my stories. Want me to tell you the end of my story? Where the lovers died? And what is Romeo's response to that?
Well, first off, he looks at Will Shakespeare. He looks over at Bill and he says, like, that's a horrible ending. It's depressing. It's illogical. Like, why would it end like that? And Bill explains, that's the point to my play, though. It's a tragic story. The idea is that toxicity is...
No, he doesn't even go into toxicity sort of thing. He just says, like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, I guess that's us. Us, the idea is, like, the whole point is that toxicity overcomes and it consumes. Again, go back to Lion King. Zira's death is because she couldn't let go of her toxicity towards Simba and his pride, even though Simba, extended his paw as like the olive branch of friendship and said, we have to move past this if, you want to survive. We're better than this. We don't have to, keep going this way. And she just couldn't let go, and eventually it consumes her and it gets her killed.
And Romeo and Juliet, no. I want a good ending.
And it's weird because it's like, for some reason, Bill Shakespeare, he's instead of explaining like the depth to what his play was, he's just sort of this. I like the dark ending better, and that's it. Like that's as if Bill Shakespeare was such a twat that like his like conceivable notion to be. It's like they're doing it despite the critics that are gonna like critique their movie of being like, wow, you missed the point entirely. And the thing about this is like, the Lion King one is so loosely based on Romeo and Juliet that it still draws better parallels in terms compared to Gnomeo and Juliet, which is so rigidly tied to the play in such a way that they use character names, that they reenact scenes, that they reenact character deaths, and then double down back and undo it because it's a kids movie and kids are stupid, and because kids are stupid, kids can accept something like death, even though Disney movies have been doing it for years. Shit, what was it? Like Simba's Pride? There were like 2 really gruesome deaths we saw in that movie because we saw one lion crushed to death by a bunch of logs, and then one plummeted into a river where it was bludgeoningly beaten to death by logs as it went down river.
Yeah, exactly. But it's not even that. I wouldn't even say that the Lion King 2 does stick to the Romeo and Juliet story, like, pretty rigidly. But it basically takes what was rigid about the story and basically takes it into that sort of, like, positive, sort of good ending sort of way. But in the actual way where the themes of the movie have been changed to actually work with the story. Romeo and Juliet doesn't do that. It just wants its freaking happy ending.
Yeah, because it's a kids' movie. I mean, okay, again, don't really remember the play that much, but I'm pretty sure in the play there wasn't some brilliant plan to send Romeo over as, like, a double agent to assassinate the head of the family like it was in Lion King.
No, the best I can really remember is that he was going to be sent away for a bit after he killed Tybalt. For a time.
It's the thing. The deaths of Tybalt don't even work as dramatically in Gnomeo and Juliet as it did in The Lion King, which is weird because that character, we'll just call it the Andy Dick Lion because he was voiced by Andy Dick. The Dick Lion was just this weird, annoying psychopath, and that was it. And his death still felt like, oh, that's sad because it like negatively impacted his mother, who you knew, despite being a huge bitch, still clearly loved her cub. Whereas in this one, it's just like, Tybalt goes careening through the air and hits a wall and shatters. But then he comes back at the end glued together.
Yeah, because they had that curtain call and such, because remember, this was a play.
You know, it's funny. You keep saying that, and I believe you that you're right, that it's meant to be a curtain call style ending like live action performers in a play.
Yeah.
But everything about it feels like a DreamWorks ending where everything just stops.
Yeah,
everybody throws up their hands.
Yes.
Because like the way it ends is like, I'm going to try and explain this as simple as I can. The gnome that's supposed to be Benevolo, the benevolent, kind, compassionate friend from the play, he's the bloodthirsty one. So he orders a lawnmower voiced by Hulk Hogan. He orders a lawnmower voiced by Hulk Hogan in order for it to destroy the yard. And for some reason, the lawnmower voiced by Hulk Hogan has a artificial intelligence that is self-aware enough that it works with, like, predator vision to hunt and locate targets and notices the heat signatures in ceramic models.
Yep, so it just goes around trying to destroy everything.
And it destroys the yard, both yards, demolished, and crushes Gnomeo and Juliet under a pile of rubble. Now, obviously, if you know Romeo and Juliet, oh, that's the tragic. The, 2 star-crossed lovers died tragically. No, it turns out that they're perfectly fine, even though they're ceramic. Despite being crushed by a bunch of debris.
Yeah, not even scratched.
So, and then the 2 owners come home. You see them at the front door of their houses. They insult each other, go inside. You hear them go to the backyard, they scream,
What?
all of a sudden we cut to characters just start dancing around and they're happy.
Well, I hope all those gnomes like being thrown in the garbage, because that's probably what they would do afterwards.
You know, there's a huge, glaring, strange plot hole I just realized.
What's that?
Why does the statue of Bill Shakespeare know about the plays? He didn't write them. It's a fucking statue of Bill Shakespeare.
I guess that's a fair question to ask.
It's a statue out in the park, miraculously not covered in bird shit, which is really weird because it's out in the park.
Yeah.
This pristine statue of Bill Shakespeare. How does he know?
I don't know.
It's legitimate. But I'll tell you this much, and dude, you're gonna back me up on this. I know you will. He had the one legitimate greatest joke out of the whole movie.
Yeah.
Because he was egging on Gnomeo where it's like, it's gotta end tragic, it's a doomed relationship. And Gnomeo's like, up yours, Bill Shakespeare, I'm gonna prove you wrong. And then when like the Hulk Hogan lawnmower explodes in the distance, you see like a mushroom cloud in the back, you just see him, Bill Shakespeare, looks back and just goes, ha! Told ya! Doomed!
Yeah, but...
It was legitimately funny because you're just sitting there, you're like,
Oh.
there's something meta about
Just...
this.
It's just William Shakespeare just going like, yeah, that piece of crap just exploded behind me. I'm
Because
the
there's
OG.
The idea that it's like, we could pretentiously do Bill Shakespeare's story, but differently. And there's inherently nothing wrong with that. That's what The Lion King did. But The Lion King built on themes and thematics and like correlation with scenes to work off of each other, to connect things. This one, I think you said it best when you and I were watching it. I had said, doesn't this feel like the spark notes of Romeo and Juliet? Like somebody did a Google and they were like, Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah,
This. And then they just sat down and they're like, write this. No, we don't need that character. Get it out of here. And good. Go to print. We're good.
Yeah, you just...
Movie's ready in theaters.
Yeah, all you gotta do is just give it to 8 other people, and then you got your movie. Because you got eight writers on this.
Was it 8 or was it 9? I thought I counted 9.
Yeah. Well, in the screen...
Let's count along. Let's count along, WHYBOY. You hold up a finger as I count the screenplay writers.
Okay.
So we got John R. Smith.
Yep.
Rob Sprackling. Kelly Asbury. Mark Burton. Andy Riley. Kevin Cecil. Emily Cook. Kathy Greenberg. And Steve Hamilton Shaw.
Any sort of overlap in the story by as well? Because those are writers as well.
Kelly Asbury was the writer, screenplay writer, and director.
Wonderful.
John R. Smith was a screenplay writer and the story writer. Rob Sparkling was a screenplay writer and story writer. Andy Riley was a story writer and a screenplay writer. Kevin Cecil was a story writer and screenplay writer. And Steve Hamilton Shaw was also a story writer and screenplay writer.
So that is 9 writers in all.
And the only 2 that were brought in are Emily Cook and Kathy Greenberg.
Yeah, and if you can tell just from the credits, like this is basically just sort of like a little bit of a writing tidbit for any sort of production house. When you see basically credits on there, when you see like blank name and blank name, that basically just means like different sort of different drafts. Like after each and is basically a different draft written by those people.
Oh, so like there were like 5 drafts of this then?
Yeah,
before we ended up here.
You see like 2 names, then and 1 name, and 2 names, and 1 name. That's 4 different drafts written by 4 different teams.
What? Don't you just need 1 draft? You go to the store, you pick up a fucking copy of William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. There you go. This. You do this. The asshole did it for you hundreds of years ago, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, and we'll just like we did mention this a little bit, but there is actually a point to the relationship in Romeo and Juliet from William Shakespeare's time. Like, a lot of people would just say, like, oh, it's true love in every single way. But no, it's not really about that. The true theme of Romeo and Juliet from William Shakespeare's time is toxicity of the Montague and Capulet just sort of grinding together, basically boiling down this once pure romance to something horrible and tragic.
It could have been something nice and sweet, but they were such horrible, loathsome people that the only way it could have ended is that they killed themselves.
Yeah. And all the scenes in the movie built up to that. And that's why that became one of the most strongest and well-known stories in all of history.
That's why it stood the test of time for so long. That's why Lion King used it in the sequel.
And that's why they used Hamlet in the first one.
And Rosencrantz and Guildenstern in 1.5. That one's a little weird, but it kind of makes sense, actually, because Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are actually very clever, if you know about that.
Yeah.
But that's something, that's neither here nor there. Romeo and Juliet is a story, the whole point is the tragedy. And it's fine if you want to write that similar story and not have it be tragic. There's nothing inherently wrong with doing an alternate approach to the story, because it's not like William Shakespeare is like the end-all be-all storyteller. He's one storyteller in a long line of storytellers that existed. That's it. I personally think the Lion King 2 approach was good. I like the idea that they played with the idea of toxicity. I wish after Shrek 2, they pulled from that kind of stuff and played with that kind of mentality.
Yeah.
Instead of just tossing their hands in the air and going, fuck it.
Yeah, and it's also interesting because they used the toxicity for a positive approach. Because they basically made the Romeo and Juliet coming together the positive end-all to everything, rather than the original where them coming together was basically the signifier on the end of the tragedy.
That's the thing, like, the play, like you just said, it's the end-all be-all. Like, this ended in tragedy because it was, like, begotten by tragedy. But the Lion King it may have started with tragedy, but it ended in romance and delight. It's a stronger pride. It's two houses coming together to be one strong foundation. That's good.
What does Gnomeo and Juliet say with its relationship and tragedy? It has no theming to it. It's just, we wanted a happy ending. What else can you pull from this story? What focus is there? They're just a bunch of characters running around doing Romeo and Juliet.
Like, even paraphrasing quotes. Which is weird, because if the whole idea was to aim this at kids anyways, what fucking kid's gonna know who William Shakespeare is?
Yeah, and to know the exact quotes from the book. And also know Elton John, Spider-Man jokes. The Spider-Man movie jokes, I should say, to be more specific.
They made Spider-Man movie jokes for some reason. Which is weird, because they live out in the backyard. How would they know?
Yeah, it's just a confused movie.
It's a piece of crap.
It's a rock bottom.
Screw this! Rock bottom to infinity and beyond! I don't care that the only reason Disney put this out under Touchstone is because they probably knew they didn't want this crap under the mainstream banner.
Yeah, they probably didn't feel that confident after going through so many writers. It did make its money back. Like 110 million, something like that?
No, 194 million bucks on a 36 mil budget.
Yes. Yes, just speaking from an animation perspective, just real quick, just like, the animation's fine. Like you pointed out, sometimes there's some low texture models and such. With some of the
certain
doors
backgrounds are... the human models, because the humans aren't put in a big focus, their heads, their faces are always obscured by like a hat or shadowing or something like that. So they don't look uncanny valley or anything, but they look like stock model assets of people.
Yeah. Because
they're not. I mean, I think altogether in terms of human characters, there's like the two owners, who by the way are called the Capulets and the Montagues. We read a book, and like 3 kids they run into at the park.
Yeah, 3 British kids who basically just find a lawn gnome on the ground and just like, let's toss this crap.
Which, by the way, that had to be like one of the most random things in this movie. Was like, "Hey, is this a lawn? No."
Okay. Ooh. Oh yes, they all have British accents too.
Yeah, well, they had like a lot of British people on here. I mean, like Michael Caine was the king. Maggie Smith. I don't know if you ever watched Harry Potter. Mm-hmm. She was Professor McGonagall.
Right.
Ozzy Osbourne. James McAvoy was Gnomeo. You would remember him from one of your favorite Christmas movies of all time, Arthur Christmas. He was Arthur.
Right.
So, congratulations. You had a lot of talented voice actors on this.
And you made them all
Jim Cummings
soulless.
is in this. And Jim Cummings was channeling his Don Carnage voice from Tailspin.
He was the closest that I could feel to an actual character behind that.
Oh, Jim Cummings is a peach, man. He brings 110% no matter what kind of crap he's in.
Yeah, it's just that the only problem with him is just that they use him for emotional manipulation rather than actually being a character.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'll give respect on the idea of... I really don't think animated films should be as high-budgeted as they are. Yeah. Because there's something about it where it's like, we threw as much money as we could at this. From a financial standpoint, is that really a good business practice, though, to spend, like, $200 million on a movie and hope to make that back?
Yeah, because this was done on such a low budget, and it made triple its money back, mostly.
I think, is the lowest still... Captain Underpants, I think it was $35 million.
Yeah, I believe so, but it really does show
that looks way better than this.
Yeah, it leagues better. It really does show that you don't really need that just sort of like grandiose budget to basically make a quality product. Basically, that grandiose budget basically just makes your head too fat sometimes. Think you're just so great.
Well, like
really not.
They lucked out with like Frozen making $1 billion.
Yeah.
Because that really could have gone either way. They could have been like, man, we threw like $200 million at Frozen. Man, it's a good job you broke $1 billion. Otherwise, you would have been like $2 million in the hole from that.
Yeah, people could have just been thinking like, wow, I really like Tangled more. You could have easily went that way.
Yeah. And on top of that, this got a sequel. So it's going to be... Sherlock Gnome is what it's called. It's not gonna. It's. I don't get this. Are all of them gonna just be gnome related movies now? Like, are they gonna be just in the most basic way juxtaposed, connected in some way?
Yeah.
Because like Romeo and Juliet. Okay, it's Romeo and Juliet. Sherlock Gnome has gnome statues of Watson and of Sherlock. Played by Johnny Depp, and I don't know who's playing Watson. Chiwetel Ejiofor. I have no idea how to pronounce this dude's name. You were in something recent, weren't you? Were you in like a Marvel movie? I bet you were in a Marvel movie. Okay, well I don't know what he was in. Oh wait, he was cast as he was Carl Mordo in the Doctor Strange movie. He was.
Oh right, yeah.
He was one of the supporting characters in that.
Right.
But, like, they're going to do, like, Sherlock Gnome now, and it looks like most of them are coming back, it seems. Jim Cummings is on here. Ozzy Osbourne's back. Jesus, Ozzy, man, you must really need your drugs. It looks like they're just going to throw a bunch of freaking, like, names at it again.
Yeah, it really does feel like a movie where they just basically just throw all the big star names, basically, hopefully get it from that. I do feel like I'm looking forward to this movie more than this first one now. Because just from the trailer and such, they're at least, getting out of the freaking house. Out of what Romeo and Juliet was.
That's fair. But they show multiple fart jokes in a one rapid succession scene in this with that weird Speedo gnome who was like nothing. He was like a footnote, not even, in the first film, and yet they felt the need to like play that up.
Yeah, it feels so weird because we're gonna be completely transparent. We saw the trailer for Sherlock Gnomes first before we saw the Romeo and Juliet movie, so we were kind of expecting for Speedo guy to be a basically big joke in the first movie, but he's not.
he just sort of showed up maybe like once or twice.
Yeah.
So he wasn't really... There wasn't even really any big main jokes with him. Like, the trailer for, like, Sherlock Gnome is like he falls into a mud pit and just keeps farting in the mud pit and bubbles come up.
Because that's what I think of when I hear Speedos, right?
I can't even understand. You don't have organs. Like, again, I know you're like, Nero, you need to accept the fact that they're alive. Okay, but even Toy Story acknowledged they are toys.
They weren't
like
crapping on the rug or anything.
Yeah, it's not like Slinky took a shit on like Andy's bed or something. Like Woody, when his arm was coming off, it was threads coming undone and fluff coming out. The whole foundation to that first fucking movie was the idea that Buzz Lightyear needed to come to terms with the fact that he was a toy. He wasn't a space ranger. He wasn't some epic sci-fi hero. He was a child's plaything. That was the point. And in this one, it feels like they're trying to be like, oh, it's funny because it's inanimate objects all living together. Okay, fine. But they're all also like living creatures that like breathe and stuff. What? You can't have it both ways.
I don't know.
So we'll get back to you when we see Sherlock Gnome because
maybe just show us if you want us to review it. Just put as many likes as you can in below.
Can we make a deal?
What?
If we get at least like 100 likes, then we'll go see it. Just 100.
Yeah.
That's it. Because if people aren't going to show interest, I don't feel a reason to spend my time, my money, or really getting off my fat ass and walking to the theater. So if we get like 100 likes, then I say we go see it. Then we owe it to them because at least 100 people wanted us to see it.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. Trying to make ToonGrin's Gnome Month a real success. Get us 100 likes and we'll go see Sherlock Gnome.
Yeah. So, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell. That's how you stay up to date. Be sure to support us through either PayPal or Patreon.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, Patreon or our TeePublic, where you can just get all sorts of nice shirts there, or just go to ToonGrin.com, where you can see all our videos. They're all neatly organized.
We appreciate you all for stopping by. And just remember that always tune in
to ToonGrin.
And this is the March of the Gnomes. I didn't even have a witty gnome pun. I hate life.
Hashtag Gnome Month.
Hashtag March of Gnomes.
We'll figure out the hashtag later.
Hell, send us more gnome stuff, by the way. In all honesty, comment that crap. Let us know if there's anything gnome related we should be checking out. Hey, just because we couldn't find some things doesn't mean they couldn't.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.